Government has up to November 9 to settle all unpaid allowances of judicial service staff. Failure to do so would result in an indefinite strike. The association is also calling for a review of their salary and demanding that it is captured in the 2016 budget to avert further industrial actions.
These salaries we take became obsolete. Nothing to write home about as far back as 2012. And that was when we started, calling for reviews of our salaries. And so you can see if a salary was as useless, forgive me, as useless as at 2012, then you can imagine how nothing it is today. And so what we are saying is that the judicial service staff are actually desperate and distressed because of poor conditions of service.
So is there the likelihood that something positive will come out of this extended grace period between now and Friday? What is likely to be the impact of a total withdrawal of service on delivery of justice? This is today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Members of the Judicial Service Staff Association have been asked to work normally till Friday instead of the earlier threat issued by partially withdrawing their service. The association says government has until Monday, November 9 to settle all arrears owed workers. Otherwise, members will withdraw their services indefinitely starting Monday. Alex Nate is the president of the association.
A few minutes to 3:30, we had a call from government through the Minister of Labor and Employment, and the word was that government has, directed that our allowances that have been outstanding, in respect of which we have set ourselves out to embark upon this industrial action, must be paid, and that we should give government up to Friday. Being law-abiding union members, we have no basis for which we should dispute the word of government. We have therefore accepted the word of government and have given them up to Friday to see the fulfillment of the word that government has sent to us. And so we have reviewed our action plan. The review is that instead of withdrawing our services partially tomorrow and Friday, we will continue to wear our red armbands tomorrow and Friday to see what the outcome will be by close of Friday. If by the close of Friday we do not see anything in the judicial services account as we have been promised, then the 9th schedule, being an indefinite strike by the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana, will be effectuated.
But that's not all. The association says government must review salaries of workers and capture these into the 2016 budget.
Yes. As a union, we also think of the well-being of Ghana and the judicial service in particular. And we know that industrial actions and some of these hue and cry at the labor front do not help Ghana. And so to avert this, we submitted a proposal to the Judicial Council calling its attention to the fact that they have a constitutional mandate to determine our salaries. And we further propose that they should consolidate these allowances so that we don't find ourselves in this unfortunate situation. In fact, it made sense to the Judicial Council. They have approved it. The next line of action is for His Excellency, the President of the land, to approve payment. And we are saying that government should act swiftly on it and ensure that this is factored in the 2016 budget. If government does that, 2016, nobody will hear of us in a press conference as we have today talking about. Sometimes we feel bad coming out to the public to make some of this noise. So we are appealing to the President to ensure that these things are settled once and for all. If the government does not do anything about it, there is no way the Judicial Service staff can still work in 2016 peacefully on the salaries we take today. These salaries we take became obsolete, nothing to write home about as far back as 2012. And that was when we started, calling for reviews of our salaries. And so you can see if a salary was as, useless, forgive me, as useless as at 2012, then you can imagine how nothing it is today. And so what we are saying is that the Judicial Service staff are actually desperate and distressed because of poor conditions of service. And so government should act as swift as possible to avert the situation by approving payment of our new salaries so that some of these issues could be averted once and for all.
Let's do some analysis now because Alex Nati is president of JUSAC and he joins me in the studio. You're welcome on today's big story.
Thank you,
So you are demanding
sister.
for allowances for which period?
As we have indicated, some of these allowances have been outstanding since January. Others became due as far back as January, July, okay, and what have you. And what we talk about is not even about the fourth quarter, which we are halfway through.
Right.
They pertain to the first, second, and third. And so if you want to know, then these are the salaries and what we are talking about.
Right. But government, as you indicated, called you before 3 p.m. today to assure you that your salaries will be, or your allowances will be settled by Friday. Why are you still wearing red armbands? Have you lost hope in government?
No. We have clearly demonstrated that we have no basis to dispute the word of government. Okay. We don't have any such basis. But we have a program. We also are a side that is negotiating for something. Right. And the agreement is that, yes, even though we have a word, sometimes the specific institutions that need to act on the word of government, do not act swiftly as workers expect. So let us continue in our raid to demonstrate that we will not be satisfied until we see the manifestation, the direct manifestation of government word in our pocket. That is why we will be in raid up to Friday.
And you have indicated that until Friday, if your demand is not heeded to, or government does not settle what you're looking for, that will mean you'll be going for an indefinite strike. And indefinite strike means what?
Indefinite strike means that we will embark upon a strike. We will withdraw our entire services, and when you come to the offices, you will not find anybody to attend to you until what we are asking for is duly delivered.
As a judicial service worker, are you not worried that a total withdrawal of your service would affect justice delivery in the country?
We are extremely worried, but we cannot also serve at our peril. So the equation must be balanced.
So have you had any negotiations already before this? Because I know this is the last resort you should
yes,
have.
We have always indicated that the Judicial Service staff understand the rudiments of the game, and there's no way we will take to the street when we have not had any discussions with those that matter. It is when our discussions fail to yield the expected result, that we exercise the option we have resorted to.
And what has been government's commitment so far?
We have said that government has issued a word to us, and we have taken the word in good faith. And so between now and Friday, we are living by the word of government.
I'm playing the devil's advocate here. In case on Friday you don't get what you're looking for, it means that you're going on an indefinite strike. How long do you intend to stay out of job?
As indefinite as the situation will allow.
As indefinite as the situation will allow. You're also demanding. You're also demanding for a review of salary. But are you not being too hard on government?
We are not being too hard. As a union, we need to help management to excel, and some of these industrial actions detract, the commitment of government and management. And so, what we think, in our view, will help us avert this situation so that we can focus on what we need to do to achieve result, is to find a way of averting the delays. One sole way that you can avert these challenges is to fuse all the payment that come after your salary. You expect that something is paid the next month or the end of the quarter. If it doesn't come, that doesn't mean that because you have taken your salary, you shouldn't make demand for that one, because it's part of your conditions of service. You are a worker and you understand what is meant by conditions of service. Right. And so there is no way you allow one provision under your conditions of service to be taken lightly. And so we are saying that we all will have a very congenial working environment at the judicial service when we consolidate all these salaries.
All right. In case government says that, look, our hands are tied, and so be a little patient with us. You seem too determined.
The consolidation does not make any difference. It's a matter of what government is already committed to being put together, and paid simultaneously.
Right.
That is rather in the interest of government and the management of the judicial service.
Well, many thanks to Alex Nate. We're hoping that you won't go for an indefinite strike, because this is the time
that it takes to. That does not depend upon us alone.
The judicial service is also suffering, some
we are all suffering. We are all Ghanaians.
We don't want.
And we have every Ghanaian and every guest of Ghana at heart. And so we just want to streamline things so that we can have a constant, reliable system for access to justice.
Wish you all the best. We've been speaking with some of the staff of the Judicial Service. Let's listen to what they've been telling us.
Our salary is just a scanty something, and this allowance that is the one that supports us up and down. And this time, it's not forthcoming. So what do you think we'll do? At the end of the day, they'll say announce. That is not the issue. They should take good care of us, then we are done.
Government may say its hands are tied. Can't you be a little patient for government?
For a security man taking home 300 Ghana, that my president said he was not mentioning, and his hands are tied, 300 for a security man to take home, or 350. No, the government shouldn't say that. The government should be fair to us.
In the studio also to do the analysis is Ben Arthur. He is a labor consultant. Hello, Ben. Welcome to today's big story.
Thank you.
Interesting times for the country, right?
Oh, yes. For the second time, the judicial service is in the picture again.
And not only the judicial service, we're seeing a lot of these industrial actions, a lot of them this year.
Quite a lot for 2014 and 2015.
I'm not worried.
I don't get worried. I rather take it as an opportunity for us to streamline our industrial relations in this country. I've said on this platform severally that constructively what is happening is telling us the weaknesses in our system, the inefficiencies, the structural defects in our industrial relations system. So it is a wake-up call. That is the perspective with which I speak. It's a wake-up call for all of us, not just government, for employers, and for practitioners to set up, have a second look at our industrial relations law practice and probably look at the structure and functions of the National Labour Commission as well.
But how bad is this particular threat to go on strike, especially from where it's coming from? You know what we've seen in recent times, considering corruption in the judicial service, and it's a time the judicial service is trying to build an image or to rebuild its image. So how bad is this threat?
If I understand your question, probably we are speaking to the cost of the threats and the strikes to us as a nation.
First of all, and implications.
It doesn't sound good for judicial service that the management and government will sit down for workers to go on strike before, or threaten strike before they wake up to their responsibility. In fact, if you look at the labor laws, it says that it is mandatory, it's the responsibility of an employer, not just government alone, an employer to pay the agreed amount, which is salary in this case, at agreed time and at agreed place. So when you have an agreement as to payment, as to time, amount and place, and it's not being respected, it's like you are strangling a gentleman who is very quiet, cannot fight. But when it gets to some point of suffocation, definitely some self-defense will come in. So what is happening now is a reaction to more or less lack of enforcement or respect of an agreement.
But there are concerns that government has not been proactive enough when it comes to these cases, because in most situations you see government not doing much until it gets to this stage. Then government comes in to say, okay, we'll settle your salary, go back to work. Is it a deliberate attempt by government, or you think that government's hands are tied?
My answer is not just a direct attack on government, but is to speak to the issues. It's not just government alone, but even in our private sector, sometimes people exhibit some of these tendencies. But by and large, when it comes to the public sector, what I have seen as missing is effective communication. What we call channels of communication must be open. For example, if you go to the judicial service, you look at the structure and the rest, I doubt if those at the lower level have the opportunity to participate in decision making. This is not to indict anybody in the judicial service, but by and large, channels of communication are not respected. Sometimes public sector workers complain that they have sent letters, requests, and nobody even responds to them. So it's the responsibility of every employer to open the channels of communication. And if we are not getting the channels of communication, well, definitely there will be bottlenecks. I want you to give me A and B. At least respond and tell me that I'm unable to give you A, B.
So would you say the threat by the judicial service is in order?
I am not justifying a threat, but it is within the rights of workers to demonstrate or to embark on strike. And in this case, it appears they have given adequate notice to the employer.
But government has assured that it will pay between tomorrow and Friday. Do you think they still have the right to wear red armbands?
For me, it's my prayer that the Friday will come, and may God be on the side of government to honor its promise.
And if government does not honor its promise, we are all eyeing an indefinite strike. An indefinite strike, and Alex has just told me that it's indefinite for as long as possible. What does the labor law say about this? Do they have the right to go for as long as possible?
Yes, workers have right to go on strike. And the unfortunate thing is that we don't have a time frame within which a strike should be called off. For example, we could have had, like other countries have, that if you go on strike for a certain number of months or certain number of days and the matter remains unresolved, probably go back to work whilst you try and get the matter resolved. But in Ghana, we don't have any regulations to this effect. So as long as you can embark on a legal strike, what it means is that you can be on strike as long as the law will permit you, as long as the system will permit you. But I pray that Friday government will honor its promise, and then the workers will go back. I'm looking at the cost to the nation, the repercussions. When you talk about justice delivery in the country, without the JUSAC, judges will be immobile.
Exactly.
Any other person or structure in the judicial service is demobilized.
Right.
It's just like you have a four-wheel drive, but you don't have tires.
Exactly.
So it will affect. And for me, when somebody is involved in any crime and they are arrested, and probably is wrongfully arrested, and the person has been kept in cells beyond 48 hours, what happens?
Exactly.
They still must investigate.
But
so how are they going to?
Listening to the Judicial Service, they have a case because you can see how passionate they are about the issues. It looks like they've gotten it up to here, and so they have nothing to do more than to take this action. Let's listen to one of the staff who I spoke to earlier. Then we can continue this discussion.
Okay.
Very, very frustrated because I need money to pay my children's school fees and whatever. Most of the people, most of the staffs, when you're asking them, that is what they are complaining. You see, so they have to pay everything to us so that we'll be free.
Okay, so he needs money to settle his children's fees. He needs money to do other things, and of course, they know how important the Judicial Service is in delivering justice. But they also need to take care of their families. This is a time they're also demanding for a review of their salary. The school of thought will say it may be a wrong time because you're demanding for one, you don't have it yet, and you're adding another. Is it the right time to demand for salary review?
Oh, as far as workers' rights are concerned, you can demand not just one or two, you can demand as many, but as whether it will be given to you or not, that's a different science altogether.
Right.
There are two key issues that we need to really reflect on. What is happening generally is a reflection of the challenges in the economy. And not only that, pay probably way back in 2012, 2013, even if you are being given the same amount or it's been increased by 10, 20%, the purchasing power is still lower than 2-3 years ago.
Right.
So inflation has probably kept on erasing or eroding the value of the purchasing power. Not only that, the depreciation of the cedi is also affecting us badly. So it stands to say that, for example, if you are paying a worker 20 Ghana cedis 2 years ago, and you are still paying the same amount now, its value is probably the equivalent of 6 cedis or 7 cedis in those days. So as far as we are unable to protect our cedi, as long as we are not doing well economically, people will have challenges. And even if we believe that we are paying them well, they will still find good reasons to demand more. So a review is within their rights.
I'm more interested in the fact that they're saying that if government does not review their salaries and it also include it in the 2016 budget, government is going to see more of this action in 2016. Is it healthy?
If they were at the negotiating table at this moment, then I could conveniently call it as coercion.
Right.
But it's not. It's an information they are passing on to the government. And instead of blaming them, I believe and I advise government to set up, because it's not just the Judicial Service Staff Association that is beating the drums. Others are watching and they are waiting. When the doctors went on strike, the junior doctors, you and I stood here and we predicted that as soon as theirs were going to be over, the others will follow. And indeed, the senior ones followed. JUSAC after JUSAC, other organizations will follow, because we had a statement from government to public sector workers that it has to be in the budget.
Right.
And that statement, it has to be in the budget, means that everybody ought to set up. If you want better conditions of service for 2016 and beyond, this is the time to wake up and fight.
But are you worried about generally the industrial actions we've had? There's too many. Did you envisage that we would have such industrial actions, and what would account for these?
I had envisaged that even on a larger scale, but I get worried, especially when as a country we fail to recognize the time lost. For example, if I were a worker in the public sector and we have 20,000 of my kind and I'm being paid, let's say, 15 Ghana cedis a day for producing, anytime I go on strike for a day, that 15,000 is gone. It's gone. So multiply it by the number of people who are sitting down, and not just the amount of money that we are losing.
Right.
But even the service that is not being rendered, it's not in our good interest that we should allow workers to go on strike every now and then. But it's within their economic right. It's constitutional. They are mandated. It's there for them to use some of these mechanisms to protect their economic interests.
Right.
It's their basic industrial rights, if I should call it that way. But Ghana ought to sit up. We ought to sit up and be very proactive.
It's very worrying that we're experiencing all of this, and I think that maybe government needs to do more. What do you advise? Because it's obvious these industrial actions do not help. It doesn't augur well at all, especially when it's coming from government, the government sector, the public sector. How does government handle this issue so that in 2016 we don't see a recurrence of what we've seen in 2015?
Two quick advice to government, and I pray that government
will take your advice.
We need, first of all, to look at our pay system again. We need to denominate our pay system by an hour.
Right.
This is to say that we are going to the basis of checking productivity. It will help us not just because of the strikes, but there is the need to measure productivity very well.
Right.
So that is one. We also need to dovetail our public sector wages into our economic well-being.
Okay.
For example, we could say that for a year or a particular fiscal year, we could have a certain percentage of our GDP for public sector, wages. Then we know that this is the budget. This is what we're going to do. Now we know that we're going to hire this. Somebody should be able to do some kind of planning and projections, not just for a year or two, 5, 10 years and beyond. Then we know that this is the capacity. This and this we are hiring, we are producing this, and we'll be able to give this amount of money out and pay workers. It looks as if everything is on the cry and sit down and respond kind of model. I mean, it's a reactionary model that we are operating.
Okay.
It's not too good for us. We need to sit down, plan, and by economic planning, we should see public sector wages as a percentage of our GDP.
Well, many
that
thanks
is the way
to you,
go.
Ben Atta. Thanks so much for coming to today's big story. We've been talking about a threat by the Judicial Service to go on an indefinite strike come Monday if government does not honor its promise of paying their allowances by Friday. If that happens, they're going on an indefinite strike for as long as possible. They're also asking for a review of their salary, which they're asking government to put in the 2016 budget. If that also is not heeded to, we should expect more of the actions coming in 2016. We'll be discussing those issues in the studio. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Good evening.